Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe, and if you are watching us live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page, Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube, perhaps on Twitter, just a reminder that you can watch us whenever you want in the future. Perhaps some of you are watching on YouTube down the road here where this show archives on all the social media channels you're watching now, and we embed this show in my recap on syracuse.com. It may be November 29th, but the Syracuse University men's basketball team has hit rock bottom, and there's a long way to go. And perhaps they can find a crack in the foundation and dig itself even deeper at this point. A losing season a year ago is unthinkable. It feels like it's inevitable with the way this team is playing. A opportunity, believe it or not, is going to sound really weird, that Syracuse really had this one within its grasp. They only trailed 30-23 at halftime of what was a poor offensive game on both fronts for both Illinois and Syracuse. But Illinois outscores the Orange in the second half by a mark of 43-21. The final in Champaign, 73-44. So I certainly have a lot to say about this one, but I know you do too. So I'm just going to go hot and heavy here from the get-go. And here you go. The comments are coming hot and heavy. I'm just going to highlight them as they come. And you guys are certainly going to have your opinions on this one, right? William here, this team is in deep trouble. It certainly seems like that. This team is a long way from being a tournament team, says Joe. Polo Ground says, love what Justin can bring. Need to see Quadir especially. They actually did mix up a bunch of players in this game. Jim Boeheim played 11 players in the first half, and a bunch of guys got out there, but nobody could score other than Jesse Edwards. Joe Girard has now gone 2 of 25 in his last 3 games. He did not score in this game. He played 20 minutes and went 0 for 3. And look, I just have to say this, okay? I'm going to say this right off the bat. As Larry notes here, if Girard doesn't turn it around, this team won't win 10 games. I hope there's nothing going on away from basketball in a serious manner that's affecting Joe Girard's game. I hope this is just a shooting slump. It's just a basketball thing. But this team does not have a primary senior leader, a primary scorer. I mean, Jesse Edwards is certainly an experienced veteran player who shows up every night. He fouled out again, but he had 9 points and 16 rebounds before that. But Joe Girard cannot struggle like this if this team is going to expect to be competitive in any game, let alone against a top 16 team, a top 22 team, according to Ken Pom. And the last true opportunity for Syracuse to pick up a non-conference win, but to consider any conversation about this team in the NCAA tournament, even here on November 29th, with 3.5 months to go in the season, is just foolhardy. This team is too young, it's too inexperienced, it's too disorganized, and it's not getting enough key contributions from key players consistently to be considered in the conversation for any tournament. This is not even an NIT team at this point, folks, and this was a big mark in the sand to do that. They get Notre Dame on Saturday, their first ACC game on the road, and the rest of the non-conference slate, Georgetown, Monmouth, Cornell, who else is in there? Oakland is in there. All have Ken Pom ratings of 148 or higher. So forget all that. This is a team that's just lost at this point. As Richard says here, I'm just going to highlight a few comments, then we'll dig into the numbers, everybody. Daryl, just with we're just at the point where we're posting emojis at this point, right? We don't even know what to say. We're just posting emojis. What is happening with this team? I can't even keep up with you guys. They're coming so hot and heavy at this point. Fran Fischella saying Boeheim told him if he were 50, he'd be in the NBA because he doesn't like what has become of the college game. He doesn't want to be there. And it shows. Greg says it about as pointed as you can. Joe's got to be better. Let's see. Where are you, Susan? There you are. There are plenty of high schools in Syracuse that could scrimmage Syracuse and win. More emojis from Daryl. There it is, right? Doug say no offensive identity, no clue what the game plan is. Yeah, keep them coming, friends. So while you do that, I am going to dig into the numbers a little bit here, as much as we have to rip off the Band-Aid and do that. So Syracuse got outscored in the second half of this game, 43-21. Syracuse had 15 field goals in this game. 15 of 54, that's 28%. The sad thing is Illinois didn't shoot that much better. They were 24 of 67, that's 36%. Oh, be still my heart, the free throws in this game. Good God. Syracuse was 9 of 17, that's 53%. Illinois was 14 of 22, that's 64%. Just so many points thrown away at the free throw line. Syracuse got out rebounded 46-42. The Orange turned the ball over 17 times in this game. Illinois just 7 times. Illinois getting 18 points off of those turnovers. A triple-double in this game, not something you see often in the college game, friends. Coleman Hawkins with 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists for the Illini. Terrence Shannon with 17 points on the day. He led Illinois. This is a guy that had a terrific game against UCLA earlier this season with 29 points, 8 threes in that game. What a transfer he has been. And that's the lesson for Syracuse, right? Illinois completely rebuilt their team with transfers. Syracuse is trying to do it with 6 freshmen. That's the state of college basketball today. The old traditional way of just bringing in recruits. It's not going to make the instant impact on a team. It's going to take too long for this team to form any sort of identity and find itself and know who it's going to be. And it is getting late early, as Yogi Berra once said. It may be too late for this team already, and it is November 29th. So we mentioned Jesse Edwards doing all he can out there with 9 points and 17 rebounds, but just no one else could get into a flow. Judah Mintz had 9 points, but he was 3 of 16 and in and out of the lineup. Chris Bell with 8 points, 1 rebound again. Chris Bell's had 2 rebounds in 4 games. That's just unacceptable for a forward, and I don't know how much longer Syracuse can continue that. Benny Williams came back from an illness. He only played 8 minutes in the last game. He played 30 minutes in this game. He had 8 points on the night. I mean, there's really Justin Taylor after a 25-point night, just 6 points in this game in 23 minutes. It was a mishmash. 12 different players got in for Syracuse. But it didn't matter because even though they were in this thing and down by 7 at halftime and with the opportunity to just scrap out a ugly win, just find a way to get some kind of offensive fluidity in a game where Illinois couldn't score either. We mentioned Hawkins had the triple-double and Shannon was good, but Illinois was struggling to shoot the ball often in this game. Both teams were even, 30%, 31%. All Syracuse needed was just an average, competent offensive day. Have Joe Girard go score 10 points, get some free throws back, scrap out it ended up being 73-44 because Illinois pulled away, but scrap out like a game in the 60s, right? And now you've got this win in your back pocket for the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee, which, again, that's just a pipe dream at this point with the way this team is playing. The confidence this team would gain going on the road, winning on the ACC Big Ten Challenge, RIP, by the way, it's going to be the ACC SEC Challenge starting next season, and an impressive showing on national TV. It was the opposite of everything. They embarrassed themselves on national TV. They only scored 44 points, and now you've got not only fans here, but how many people around the country are just looking at this thing and saying, man, what happened to Syracuse? What happened to Jim Boeheim? Like all the questions that will come, and all the fans will be like, yeah, we've been seeing this coming here for the past few years. But now, you look at last year, they had a losing season. It's like, okay, was that an anomaly? Clearly it wasn't. It's the downward trend. Somebody tweeted me and it kind of feels like this. It's like, Brent, you feel that cold water? Because they hit the iceberg back there, and now the ship is starting to flood. I mean, that's pretty much what's happening here. The wheels have come off for Syracuse basketball. They've got a long way to go here, and I don't see how this team can improve at a rate where it can be competitive and play for anything. They're free to prove me wrong here. Maybe this is the rock bottom wake-up call that they need, but there's no offensive flow. There's no organization. They played pretty good defense for, 25 minutes of this game, and you play in zone, you play in man. They went into the zone. Illinois was just missing shots left and right, and that wasn't just because Illinois was missing shots. Illinois was, and I'm just going to keep highlighting some of your comments as I'm yapping here, guys. Illinois was missing shots because Syracuse was hustling on defense. They were in position. They were altering shots. It's kind of that stare down you get when you play the zone. You can keep firing threes. At one point, they're like 5 of 19 from three-point range. Would they end up at three-point range? Let me go back on that for a second. 11 of 39. That's 28%. Illinois came into this game. They ended up with 73 points, but they're averaging 85 points a game. They're one of the best two-point shooting teams in the country. They're top 7 in the country, 62% coming in. They shot 36% from the field. That's a team that's averaging 62% coming into this game. They shot 36%. Syracuse actually did what it had to do in theory on defense, but completely busted out on offense. Right? And look, you just got to wonder about everything. Everything's under examination at this point. For those that are questioning Boeheim, there's a lot of things you can question with this team, Boeheim included, right? I mean, Boeheim can't make Joe Girard make shots. Jim Boeheim can't, do certain things out there, but he's the coach and he takes the brunt of this. And those that are looking at Boeheim, and a lot of it's an overall approach, but micro, macro, whatever level you're looking at here, look, it's fair game. Guys, Jim Boeheim has never been 3-4 in his 47-year tenure. This is the first time that he's been below 500 after 7 games with a record of 3-4. When Syracuse lost to Iowa a couple of years back in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, to go back to that Titanic reference of the water's coming in on the boat here. When they lost to Iowa, what was that, 3 years ago? Luke Garza and company. That was the first time Syracuse went 4-4 under Boeheim. Last year was the first losing record. Like, it's all on the table, right? It's all on the table. Everything is going to be questioned here. And look, fans aren't used to this around here, right? A lot of people are looking around and are frustrated and upset because they don't know how to feel, because they've never dealt with this. Last year was the first losing season that generations of Syracuse basketball fans had never experienced. They had literally not had a losing season since the late 1960s, right? So when you experience something that you have never felt, certainly you lash out with, unexpected anger, frustration. What's going on here? Like, a lot of people don't embrace something new in oh, wow, this is kind of cool. Let's see how this goes kind of way. Certainly not when you have been trained to believe Syracuse basketball is going to be competitive. They're going to be in the top 25. They're going to play fun, up and down basketball. That's the thing right now. This team isn't even fun to watch. It'd be one thing if they're young and they're coming together. But man, I mean, there's moments. Judah Mintz has his moments. Justin Taylor last game. I think we'll continue to see that. I got to give props to Jesse Edwards as well for continuing to play hard. But man, if this team cannot improve at a steady rate here, I hate to say this, but it's just what pops to mind. They're going to become unwatchable. People are going to check out. Like, you want the passion, but if it continues on this rate, what you're going to start to see is a passive fan base that just kind of says, give me a reason to watch that. I mean, Syracuse it's what we do in the winter. It's the pastime that gets us through those cold months. It's unthinkable in a way, but if this team can't get it together, it's going to test every will of patience you have as a fan to watch a different kind of team develop and struggle and not be competitive. That's not the standard. That's not what you've been trained to believe. That's not what the standard has been set for Syracuse basketball. It's just really, really weird. Jim Boeheim did say that, Doug. He said, now he didn't necessarily say they were going to be good. I don't want to put words in his mouth there, but he absolutely did say that he believed this team would make the NCAA tournament. He actually made a big deal out of that because he said nobody's asked him prior to a season just the straight up question, will your team make the NCAA tournament? And he was very surprised that somebody would even say that, right? That anybody would even ask that directly. And he said, of course I'm going to say yes. That's going to be my answer, right? That's the belief he has in that team. I like the standard that he set for that team. I like that he, put that out there. But 7 games into the season, the furthest thing this thing looks like is an NCAA tournament team. And you're like, oh, there's so much more basketball to go. But guys, I mentioned it. So there's not a non-conference win of note. You start with ACC play Saturday at Notre Dame. And then you got Georgetown and Monmouth. And look, Syracuse can't thumb its nose at anybody any one of those teams. They can't take anybody for granted. But, even if they manage to crawl out with a couple of wins there and they're at or above 500, ACC play, like who can you take for granted there? I mean, how about Louisville? Louisville's terrible. Florida State's terrible. And there's some teams at the bottom of the league. Here you have Jim Boeheim at Media Day a few weeks ago, actually just over a month ago, saying that the Big Ten sucked in the NCAA tournament, which they did. After a great regular season, they went 9-9 in the tournament, didn't even have a Sweet 16 team. Meanwhile, the ACC's got two Final Four teams, Miami in the Elite Eight, a 14-5 record in the tournament last year. So to Jim Boeheim, who says consistently, right, that all that matters is the tournament. This team's not going to make the tournament. So that's going to be 2 years in a row. You did not do the thing that matters most, right? And in my opinion, if I'm wrong about that, I'd love to be, because I don't want to see a team playing the NIT team or an uninteresting basketball team. But there's just a lot that we don't see that we even need to just 7 games into the year. And now, how do you handle this game after game? Do you just keep saying it's a young team? It's all going to sound like excuses. There's just going to be a lot of fans, some of them are here in this chat, that are just going to check out. And it's just going to be like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. And they're just going to want change, and they're not going to want to hear anything but that. So not only is this going to put pressure, again, if it continues in this way, on Boeheim, it's going to put pressure on John Wildhack, the athletic director, and, can you sell tickets? And, there's going to be that loyal pack of fans that'll be there no matter what. But this could go south in a hurry here. And this is something I've always wondered. How would the Syracuse fan base handle this if they had a losing team for a couple of years in a row? We're about to find out. We are about to see it and find out in real time how this is going to go. Okay. I am keeping an eye on your comments here, so I'm just going to pop in, highlight what you're saying, and react to it. Matt saying defense was fine, got the initial stops, but Jesse's the only rebounder on this team. Matt, that brings to mind Chris Bell, 1 rebound in 3 games. Or is it 2? 2 rebounds in 4 games, I should say. He had 1 rebound in 3 games prior to this. He's at 2 rebounds in 4 games. By accident, you should have 6 or 7 rebounds in 4 games. Just the ball bouncing your way. How does that happen? Like, I'm not only incredulous about this. Listen to Boeheim. I can't wait to hear what he said about Chris Bell in this post-game press conference. It's like Joe shooting. When Joe can't shoot, he's pretty much, I don't want to say he's useless. That would be harsh, but he doesn't bring any other skill to the court that you look at and say, okay, well, if he's not shooting, he's on the court because he does this. There's nothing else he does. And now you got Chris Bell over at the forward position doing the same thing. You have to rebound. You have to rebound. You have to try to only get 2 rebounds in 4 games. It's ridiculous, right? Mark says it's been a good run for Boeheim. He's got to step away. Scott says, Brent, take the year off from recap. Save yourself some time for better things. I will let my editor know about that, Scott. I'll certainly get more sleep. That's for sure. But no, we got to do the recaps for the people. We got to do it. Mike says you just put Joe back to the point and Judah over the 2 if Joe's not out on a lineup issue there. Aaron says that's pure brilliance. Darn funny. Post of the night. Let's see. Jeff says, Brent, do you agree it's time for Jim to change his offensive philosophy? There's no set plays at all. Every team exploits with man in the middle who then passes it out the perimeter. Why would Boeheim try it? See, here's the thing with that. I feel like Syracuse needs to do that, but they're terrible at running set plays out of timeouts. They never get executed the right way. You got a bunch of young players out there. That's what you promise these guys when they come in, the offensive freedom to create. But they need something, Jeff. They can't just keep doing this, because trusting your players to just run off the ISOs and run the same, 3 or 4 sets that they do, clearly that's not generating offensive flow. But now to change, I mean, you're always you have to adjust. I think change maybe is the right word. You absolutely have to adjust, see what this team is really good at, and focus in on that, right? That's the downside of making a change. That will take time to adjust. But, really, what do they have to lose at this point? They got to find something. And when you have your main offensive player, in theory, in Joe Girard, who couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat right now. And again, I hope everything's okay with Joe. I really do. Like, These are college kids. They got lives outside of basketball. They got a lot going on. And look, that's what they sign up for. This is the scrutiny you get when you're a Division I athlete. But Joe Girard, who can hit shots from the logo. I once watched Joe Girard work out with Jimmer Fredette. This was 4 years ago, and he couldn't miss, right? This kid can hit shots. I can hit more shots right now than Joe Girard. Something is drastically wrong there. And it's not just teams taking him out, face guarding him. When he has open looks, and you could just see it in the second half, he wasn't looking to shoot at all. What were we talking about a few games ago? That Joe Girard shoots too much, that he takes bad shots, that he takes shots from the logo. And now, like, he looks at the basket and like he's a sad puppy that no one's home and just like shuffles the ball away. And how do you get that confidence back? I mean, all it takes is one good game, as they say, shoot or shoot. And you have Jerry McNamara on that bench who, if I was going to pick somebody to fix my shot, Jerry McNamara would be at the top of my list. But something's just not registering there. Something is not. Brad likes the Titanic references there, a ship that hit the iceberg a few weeks ago, and that water is feeling cold now. I mean, look, I can't think of another reference. And shout out to, oh boy, I'm going to get lost in a sea of tweets here, but somebody tweeted that to me, and I thought it was the perfect analogy for that at this point. I just saw Bob say that Syracuse clearly is tanking for a top draft pick next year. I mean, you got to laugh, right? You got to laugh so you don't cry at this point. Joe says, Brent, are you getting Coach on your show? Can you ask him why they're missing on recruits? I don't interview Jim. He goes on a different radio show now, but it's certainly something he should be asked one way or the other. So I will pass that along to the guys that do interview Jim on the radio weekly. By the way, you can call Jim's radio show. I'll say this, Joe. Jim Boeheim does, a little plug for them. They do a radio show every Thursday night on TK99 locally here on the Syracuse network. It's at Carrabba's locally here in Syracuse. I don't know where you are, Joe, if you're able to call in, but they take calls from all over the country and questions. So, I mean, that's something you can't ask himself, and Jim will answer it. I'll say this about Jim. He's accessible on that show, answer your questions, So certainly it's the media's job to do that, but I'll just give you a little plug for that show. You guys can ask these questions yourselves too. Sometimes it's better that you ask it instead of me, by the way. Because when it comes from me or it comes from the media, it gets the immediate wave off. But sometimes if it's a fan, it's like, okay, I don't know about that, Dale. I don't know. But at this point, they need something. They need something. I'll read the big basketball book for dummies and get back to you on that at this point, right? Let's see. Michelle says, what transfers can we get playing like this? Well, obviously you can't get transfers till after the season, right? But see, the interesting thing with this is the opportunity to come in and be fixers. Illinois did it. Now, Illinois was a tournament team last year. They were much better than Syracuse, but they lost Kofi Coburn, a couple of big players. So Shannon, who we saw out there tonight as a transfer from Texas Tech, their big man, whose name is escaping me at the moment here. Give me a sec here, guys. Adanja. He came from Baylor. He's here's the irony there. He grew up in the Baltimore area, and his favorite player was Carmelo Anthony, right? He ends up at Illinois. He only plays like 18, 20 minutes a game, but a big man who's made an impact there. There's a bunch of – they do have a top 25 recruit in Sky Clark as well, who's coming along here at a slower pace. But they went and just got those transfers, man. Just got them. Not that Syracuse hasn't played that game. They brought Cole Swider in and certainly have dipped their toe into the transfer portal. Symir Torrance, of course. But you've got to sell playing time. You've got to sell the opportunity to save a team. But they can't even do that until the end of the season. You're kind of, for lack of a better term, stuck with what you got at this point. As Jim notes here, they're not even an NIT team at this point. Don't kid yourself. I mean, I really don't have a pushback on that. What would make you say that this team in any way, shape, or form looks like they can play in any postseason, right? Let alone the NCAA tournament. Just scrolling through your comments here. You guys are going quicker than I can keep up with you here. I love the passion. Love that you guys come here and get to blow off some steam here on the show. Chris says, recruit shooters, feel bad for Edwards, an improved player with an upcoming wasted season. You can actually make the case, as Anthony hits hard with the emojis here, the chicken's coming home to roost, dead since 2014. I mean, it has been a slide since then with a Sweet 16 pop there, Final Four pop there, deep tournament run pop there, but pretty much all those tournaments they barely qualified for. But all that matters is the tournament, as I once heard a head coach say. Let's see. Jeff thinks Boeheim's not changing. When's the last time he changed a philosophy ever? I mean, they did play man-to-man for about 5 minutes this year. There must be 10 frat boys on campus that can step in and play. Go down to the local gyms. You got eligibility? Yeah, I mean, you guys are just frustrated. I mean, and I don't blame you. I really don't. No adjustments in 5 years. David saying guys want to play immediately from the portal. You can turn off the freshmen from developing. And here's the thing, like they handed Judah Mintz the keys to this thing. Al says they stink at guard. I don't think Judah Mintz stinks. I think Judah Mintz is a hell of a talent. He's just got to develop, right? He obviously had a very weak moment in the Bryant game. You can't slap people. That's pretty obvious. Little immature moment there. But he's aggressive. He gets to the hoop. I think he's getting better as a defender. He's quick. He's got the attitude you need. There's some holes in his game, certainly as a freshman. But, man, they just handed this team. Jim Boeheim said it after the Bryant game that he's their best player. It's a lot to put on a freshman to carry a team full of freshmen and a couple of experienced guys that he's trying to learn on the fly. Like getting the ball to Jesse's not a hard thing. But and Joe, in theory, Joe should be thriving right now. Here's what I don't get, guys. Joe should be thriving at the 2 because he's not running the team anymore. He's open, in theory, coming off screens. I mean, teams are doing a great job guarding him, but this should be a guy who's just free and open and at the position he should have been the past few years. And, I mean, the guy had 31 points. He had a career high against Richmond. Okay. That wasn't that long ago. And now he's shooting 2 for 25 and he's combined for, I think, 9 points in the last 3 games. It's mind boggling to me. It really is. Paul says Jim had a season with his sons as 2 of his best players. And instead of riding off into the sunset with them, he was like, nah, let's run this thing further into the ground at this point. So yeah, a lot of people are aggravated at Boeheim, time to move on. Maybe that was the sign to move on. Maybe before that 28, not the, was it, am I thinking? No, the 2020 season, the pandemic year where they got to the Sweet 16. Maybe that was the time to run off. Certainly coaching your sons for the last time. I mean, it's all on the table from you guys at this point. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to keep up with you because they're coming hot and heavy. And I'm trying to highlight some of the different ones because a lot of you guys are saying the same things. And again, I don't blame you for that. I just kind of want to highlight some of the different points here because a lot of you are making the same point. But you know what they say, when you make the same point, it's probably true. Jeff says when they lost Kadari Richmond and then Quincy Guerrier in the portal and didn't replace them, our future was mortgaged this year. I think Kadari was a big loss. I feel like it's a shame that didn't work out. I felt like it was stuck around for a few years. I loved the kind of player he was. He obviously didn't mesh with Boeheim, didn't mesh with Gerard, didn't. And look, when you recruit, you're bringing in what you think this player can be, but they're an incomplete package. There's certain things they have to grow into, and you're taking the leap of faith that they will grow into. And obviously, there was a lot he did not grow into off the court, and it's a shame that didn't work out. But that's just an example. Quincy Guerrier. The thing with Quincy Guerrier, Jim Boeheim was right about that. Quincy Guerrier wanted to shoot threes all day. And that's not the kind of player Syracuse needed. And it's not the kind of player he should have been. When he actually was aggressive around the basket and did what he was supposed to do, he's a great player. But Chris Bell's kind of got the same disease. They just want to shoot threes. It's like, no, when you play that position, you got to be around the hoop. You have to rebound. And Guerrier was a much more physical player than Chris Bell is. But these guys just have the Steph Curry disease. They all think they're out there to shoot threes all day. So I'll slightly disagree with you on Quincy, but I get the theory that you're putting up there. A couple of you guys brought up soccer. Yeah, the SU soccer team playing for a bid in the Final Four on Saturday. What a day that's going to be, by the way. Team USA playing Netherlands at 9 a.m. Syracuse men's soccer plays Vermont at 2 p.m. for a chance to go to the, as they call it in the world of college soccer, what do they call it? The College Cup, I believe, is what they call the Final Four. So big soccer day coming up. Who says there's no football on Saturday, right? All right. Listen, I love all the comments you guys brought and the passion you brought here. And I hope that you keep coming back through the year. I hope we keep having the opportunity to discuss a team and it doesn't feel like Groundhog Day, but the way they're playing right now, they've got to find a way to break out of this because it's not good. And rock bottom has come early for Syracuse basketball. And you hope that the water doesn't keep coming in on the Titanic, but it looks like that's where we're at this point. So we will be back at it Saturday. Syracuse plays Notre Dame. And give me a second, guys. I forget off the top of my head what time that game is. But we will be doing this throughout the year. We're going to, a few of the non-conference games might not be on here. But, with this team, you can't take anything for granted. Who knows? They could lose to some of these teams, and we'll have to come on and react. So Notre Dame's a noon start on Saturday. We'll be here right around 2 o'clock or so, whenever that game's over, on these same channels you're watching now. Just a reminder, you can watch down the road whenever you want. The YouTube clip, it's embedded in my recap on syracuse.com. It embeds automatically on Facebook. We put it out on our social media channel. So if you can't be here live, you can always catch the replay. Thanks to our friends at Krause Health for presenting, and thanks to you for the passion. And Antonio with the closing comment tonight. Thanks for the therapy. Dr. Axe was in session here, but our time is up for the evening. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. We'll meet again, not only Saturday after the game, but Orange Weekly, Thursdays on these same channels, where we get together and talk a little bit of everything: football, basketball, other Syracuse-related sports. We'll get into soccer a little bit on the show on Thursday. So hope you can join us then. Hope you can join us Saturday after the Orange take on the Irish. In the meantime, you enjoy the rest of your week, okay?